At 11 a.m. on July 1, 1863, Howard's 11th Corps is moving on the double from Emmitsburg, Maryland toward Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The information Howard's men have is scattered. Howard is not yet aware of General Reynolds' fate, but word is that Reynolds' Corps is engaged with an unknown number of Confederates near Gettysburg. Howard's men know that they are needed now. As they come within a few miles of town, they can hear cannons booming. July 1, 1863. Northwest of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a skirmish is emerging into a battle. We will zoom into the region northwest of Gettysburg. It's 11 a.m., and the first round of fighting at the Battle of Gettysburg is over. The blue lines remain in position, having successfully thrown back a rebel attack. 2 divisions of Union infantry from the 1st Corps are on the field, one under Wadsworth and the other under Rowley. The town of Gettysburg is to the southeast. The ridges northwest of town have become strategically significant by late morning on July 1st. Hare's Ridge, where Heth's Confederate division is gathering, is in yellow here. Willoughby Run is in blue here. McPherson's Ridge, where the Union 1st Corps is assembling, is here in orange. A Lutheran seminary is here, giving the name of the ridge in purple here, Seminary Ridge. The Chambersburg Pike is in yellow. A railroad cut is in green. Above these transportation routes, another ridge begins. This is Oak Ridge in blue, which contains some significant tree cover. Seminary Ridge in purple rolls into Oak Ridge. For the sake of this program, the Chambersburg Pike in yellow will serve as the divider between these 2 ridges. South of the Pike is Seminary Ridge, north of the Pike is Oak Ridge. It's 11 a.m. After 3 hours of fighting at McPherson's Ridge, the blue lines remain on the high ground, and Heth's rebel brigades, Archer and Davis, had earlier been forced back behind Willoughby Run. At Hare's Ridge, however, Heth has rebel cannons in place and more infantry coming from A.P. Hill's corps by the Chambersburg Pike. On the Union side, following the death of General Reynolds, commander of the 1st Corps, General Doubleday assumes field command. For clarity, in the zoomed-in maps, corps commanders are shown on a horse. Wadsworth's name is in italics, designating that he is a division commander. For clarity, in these zoomed-in maps, divisional commanders will be set in italics. Wadsworth's division has 2 brigades already heavily engaged this morning, one under Meredith at the woods near Willoughby Run, and the other under Cutler on McPherson's Ridge north of the railroad cut. Cutler's brigade here has already lost half of its men from the morning's fight, so the regiments are shown physically smaller. Wadsworth's division has held McPherson's Ridge at terrible cost, but another division from the 1st Corps has arrived. Rowley's division is composed of Biddle's brigade and Stone's brigade. Biddle is set behind Meredith on McPherson's Ridge. Stone's brigade is on McPherson's Ridge on Meredith's right flank, closing the gap between Meredith and Cutler. There are now 2 Union infantry divisions on the field at Gettysburg. Stone and Meredith's brigades will receive periodic fire from rebel cannon on Hare's Ridge. We will zoom out. Another division from the 1st Corps, this one under Robinson, is approaching Gettysburg along the Emmitsburg Road. Behind Robinson is Howard's Corps. Howard has 3 divisions in the 11th Corps. Barlow will follow up the Emmitsburg Road to Gettysburg, while Schurz and Steinwehr will follow up the Taneytown Road. General Howard has ridden ahead of his corps in an effort to find General Reynolds and survey the field. Unknown to Howard at this time is the recent death of General Reynolds. We will zoom out wider. On the Confederate side, more units are in motion. A.P. Hill's corps is on the Cashtown Pike toward Gettysburg. Because A.P. Hill's leading division under Heth has been halted at McPherson's Ridge, there is a ripple effect back up the road, causing a major traffic jam on the Cashtown Pike. Behind Heth's division, which has already been engaged, A.P. Hill has 2 more divisions approaching Gettysburg, Pender and then Anderson. Even further west, toward Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, is Longstreet's corps. Thus, 2 of the 3 corps in the Confederate Army, Longstreet and A.P. Hill, are between Chambersburg and Gettysburg at this time. The 3rd Confederate Corps under Ewell is coming from the north. Ewell is with Rhodes' division at Heidlersburg, Pennsylvania on the morning of July 1st. Jubal Early's division is nearby, just a few miles east of Heidlersburg. Ewell has begun the day's march intending to join with A.P. Hill at Cashtown. However, near modern Biglerville, Pennsylvania, Ewell has received word from A.P. Hill that Hill's corps is advancing toward Gettysburg. Ewell turns Rhodes' division toward Gettysburg directly south. Ewell sends word to Early to also turn toward Gettysburg. Early receives the message near Heidlersburg. Heidlersburg has a road leading directly to Gettysburg, known today as the Old Harrisburg Road. Early will also turn toward Gettysburg. By late morning, a skirmish at McPherson's Ridge has turned into an engagement involving 3 Confederate corps and 2 Union corps now in or approaching Gettysburg. With all of these roads leading to Gettysburg, we can see how this small town became the crossroads at which a great battle would be fought. We will zoom back into Gettysburg. At 11 a.m., Heth and Wadsworth are licking their wounds on either side of Willoughby Run. Doubleday provides an answer for why he solidified his position on McPherson's Ridge, despite the fact that large numbers of rebel forces are converging there from multiple directions. The lull that is occurring now would provide time for Doubleday to pull back to better ground. However, Doubleday is honoring Reynolds' final command to resist the entrance of the enemy into Gettysburg. General Howard arrives ahead of his columns at Gettysburg. Howard observes the landscape from a tall building in town. To the northwest, he sees the artillery speaking near Willoughby Run. To the north, Howard sees Devon's troopers from Buford's cavalry division spread out beyond town. Another division from the 1st Corps is arriving, this one under Robinson. This division files off the Emmitsburg Road toward the sound of the guns. Robinson's brigades are under Baxter and Paul. Doubleday places them in reserve near the Lutheran Seminary. Soon after, Doubleday learns that Howard is present at Gettysburg. Howard, senior to Doubleday, now takes command on the field. Howard now knows General Reynolds is dead, and the responsibility to maintain the position has fallen to him. Devon's cavalry troopers have relayed that rebel forces are coming down from the north. With large masses of rebel infantry approaching from the north and only a brigade of cavalry troopers to face them, the Union line is not secure. Thus, Howard will form the men from the incoming 11th Corps north of town to face the incoming threat. Howard, now in field command, affirms Doubleday's resolve to maintain the ridges northwest of town. Seminary Ridge must be held. From Robinson's division at the Lutheran Seminary, Baxter's brigade is activated to support Cutler's right flank. Baxter advances to Oak Ridge. We will zoom out. At about 11:30, the lead columns of the 11th Corps are beginning to arrive at Gettysburg. Howard has surveyed the ground. He will do all he can to maintain the ground thus held by Buford and the 1st Corps. However, his focus is to the high points south of town. Howard reported, "After an examination of the general features of the country, I came to the conclusion that the only tenable position for my limited force was the ridge to the southeast of Gettysburg, now so well known as Cemetery Ridge. The highest point at the cemetery commanded every eminence within easy range." Thus, General Howard makes his headquarters south of town at Cemetery Hill. General Schurz finds Howard at Cemetery Hill. Here, Schurz learns that General Reynolds is dead, and with Howard now in command on the field, Schurz will head the 11th Corps now approaching Gettysburg. With Schurz as the new corps commander, Schimmelfennig now heads the lead division. Barlow and Steinwehr follow behind. We will zoom back into town. Howard instructs Schurz to move his arriving corps through town in order to extend Doubleday's line along Oak Ridge and secure Oak Hill, the dominant eminence in the region. We will move up to Oak Ridge. Baxter's line has formed on Oak Ridge. Baxter's line from the left to right is the 11th Pennsylvania, the 97th New York, the 83rd New York, the 88th Pennsylvania, the 12th Massachusetts, and the 90th Pennsylvania. Baxter's line is supported by a stone wall here in yellow, as well as a tree line here that obscures a good portion of his brigade. The Union side has control of Oak Ridge. Baxter faces west toward Hare's Ridge, but with the knowledge of incoming rebels from the north, he also believes he will be hit on his right flank. Cutler's thinned and battle-worn regiments are on Baxter's left. Baxter may have support with Paul's brigade, which remains at the Lutheran Seminary in reserve. Oak Hill is here in Baxter's front. Oak Hill is quite dominant at over 640 feet, providing a clear vantage point of all the ridge lines to the south. Another important marker is the Mummersburg Road here, just below Oak Hill. Let's zoom out. About noon, Rhodes' division, the lead division in Ewell's corps, is about 2.5 miles north of town along Oak Ridge. They shuffle off the road and into the tree cover of the ridge. Carter's artillery is moving ahead of the infantry to get into position on Oak Hill. On the Union side, the head of Schurz's 11th Corps is now in town. Howard realizes it may be too late to secure Oak Hill. Instead, he will direct Schurz's corps forward to form perpendicular with Doubleday's corps. This will protect and extend the line from the approaching threat from the north. In Howard's mind, with Oak Ridge in a precarious position, Cemetery Hill is appearing more and more the realistic object. Indeed, the rebels have beaten Howard to Oak Hill. Rhodes is using the woods on Oak Ridge to his advantage. He moves his brigades one at a time down the ridge in the cover of the wood. Schimmelfennig's division moves through Gettysburg. Carter's guns are nearing Oak Hill. The approaching threat from the north is confirmed by Devon's cavalry troopers. The troopers report that a large body of Confederates is approaching Oak Hill. We will zoom in to the northwest. Rhodes is about 1 mile north of town. Knowing he has been spotted by Buford's cavalry, Rhodes forms his regiments into line perpendicular to Oak Ridge. Rhodes has 3 brigades in front and 2 in reserves. From Rhodes' perspective, the brigades are aligned with Iverson on the right, O'Neal in the center, and Doles on the left. Daniel and Ramsier are held in reserve behind. Carter has 2 batteries on Oak Hill, the King William Artillery under Captain Carter and the Orange Artillery under Captain Fry. Then, at about 12:30, Carter's guns on Oak Hill fire. The rebels make their control of the summit known. Cutler and Stone's brigades take enfilading fire. Baxter, due to the coverage from the stone wall and the tree line, is undetected by Rhodes at this time. Rebel artillery on Oak Hill presents a serious problem for Wadsworth's line. Artillery from this height has the ability to enfilade Cutler and Stone's brigades. Wadsworth advises Cutler to act as he found appropriate. Cutler's brigade will reposition into the woods on Oak Ridge, changing front to the north and adjoining closely to Baxter. Stone also changes front. Stone's Pennsylvania bucktail regiments are, from left to right, the 150th Pennsylvania, the 143rd Pennsylvania, and the 149th Pennsylvania. Stone puts the 149th Pennsylvania into the Chambersburg Pike, forming a 90-degree angle with the remainder of his line. Let's zoom out. Now General Howard sees the grand collision about to occur. At about 12:30, Howard has enough information to understand what is coming his way. Large numbers of infantry spotted by Devon's cavalry troopers at Oak Ridge are from Ewell's corps, meaning the rest of the corps is likely coming down the way. The rebels at Hare's Ridge, who are likely gathering reinforcements and preparing for a renewed offensive, are from A.P. Hill's corps, and behind A.P. Hill is Longstreet's corps coming down the Cashtown Pike. General Howard now knows the entire Army of Northern Virginia may be converging on his location from multiple directions. On the rebel side, regiments from Dole's brigade as well as the 5th Alabama advanced skirmishers to clash with Devon's cavalry. So as late as the early afternoon, Buford's cavalry troopers are still slowing the rebel front. This time they provide enough time for Union infantry to arrive on the right flank. The lead division in Schurz's corps is now up. General Schurz directs Schimmelfennig's division to take position to the right of Baxter. We will zoom in to get a closer look. Schimmelfennig has 2 brigades now set in position, set between the Mummersburg Road here in green and the Carlisle Street here in purple. Von Amsberg is formed here to the right of the Mummersburg Road, and Szymanowski is to his right and rear at the Carlisle Road. But Rhodes' division is showing in force on Oak Ridge. Rhodes draws up more artillery. Page and Reese's batteries are brought to the positions at the foot of Oak Hill to face against Schurz's corps. Schurz has brought up his own 1st Ohio light artillery under Dilger here. An artillery duel now commences on the low ground north of town, both sides trying to check the other's flank. Let's zoom out to the wider region. Howard has sent riders back down to Emmitsburg, Maryland, to urge Sickles' corps forward. Other riders are sent down the Baltimore Pike to inform Slocum's corps of the situation. We will zoom back to the area just north of Gettysburg. By 1245, Rhodes' brigades are now near Oak Hill. On Rhodes' left, Doles throws back Devon's troopers. It is about this time that General Ewell hears word back from Lee that he is to avoid a general engagement. However, the cannons on Oak Hill are already sounding, and Rhodes' infantry is already in position. Ewell says, "It was too late to avoid an engagement without abandoning the position already taken up, and I determined to push the attack vigorously." Let's move to Oak Hill and take a vantage point from the rebel position looking south. We are now on Oak Hill, looking south toward the McPherson's ridge lines on the right and the town of Gettysburg on the left. The rebels have turned Oak Hill into an artillery fortress. From here, they fire on Schurz's corps to the left and Doubleday's corps to the right. Rhodes sees that he has the perfect opportunity. Doubleday's men on McPherson's ridge are already facing Heth, exposing their flank. Rhodes can sweep right down the Union flank on McPherson's ridge. If his left can hold Schurz to a standstill, his right can sweep down McPherson's ridge, driving Doubleday's corps from the field. However, as rebel guns from Oak Hill fire, Rhodes realizes that there are other Union troops in his front and that he did not see before. Rhodes now sees Baxter's line on Oak Ridge, who has been obscured by trees until this point. Rhodes will have to dislodge Baxter before he can proceed down McPherson's ridge. Rhodes has surveyed the ground and made his decision. He will attack the Union line at his front with his center and right, and that being O'Neal and Iverson's brigades, with Daniel in support. In addition, he will have Doles hold off Schurz's corps. Rhodes' left might be in danger for a short while, but if Doles can maintain the line just long enough for Early to arrive, the plan might work. We will switch the view back to the north-facing vantage point from Baxter's position on Oak Ridge. Baxter's brigade, with the surviving remnants of Cutler's brigade on his left, is now at center stage. About 1 o'clock, the attack begins. O'Neal and Iverson are advanced forward. Iverson's regiments are from his right to left: the 12th North Carolina, the 23rd North Carolina, the 20th North Carolina, and the 5th North Carolina. O'Neal's brigade is advancing with only 3 of his 5 regiments. O'Neal's left regiment, the 5th Alabama, remains back to close the gap between Doles' brigade further on the left. O'Neal's right regiment, the 3rd Alabama, will remain in reserve. This leaves O'Neal with the 6th Alabama on his left, the 26th Alabama at center, and the 12th Alabama on his right. Iverson and O'Neal move forward. Daniel will follow behind Iverson in reserve. O'Neal nears Baxter's position first. The 90th Pennsylvania and the 12th Massachusetts on Baxter's right throw lead at O'Neal's Alabamians. Dilger's battery from Schurz's line fires into O'Neal's line. O'Neal's brigade is thrown back to Oak Hill. With O'Neal pulling off, Iverson's brigade is now alone at the front. Iverson advances to the stone wall. Baxter's line, from behind a stone wall, throws lead into Iverson's left regiments. But Iverson advances towards the stone wall, making it to within 100 yards of Baxter's line. Iverson's left regiments are being thrashed. The 12th North Carolina on Iverson's right remains strong. Daniel's brigade is now moving onto the field from reserve. We will slide down to Stone's position on McPherson's Ridge at the Chambersburg Pike for a better angle. We are looking north at Oak Hill. The Chambersburg Pike is here. Iverson's brigade is engaged with Baxter and Cutler here. With Iverson now turned in, Daniel's line behind is revealed to Stone's Pennsylvania bucktails at the Chambersburg Pike. Daniel's brigade has, from his right to left, the 32nd North Carolina, the 43rd North Carolina, the 45th North Carolina in the center, the 53rd North Carolina, the 2nd North Carolina Battalion, and finally that 3rd Alabama from O'Neal's brigade, which had been held in reserve. Daniel needs to support Iverson, but his flank will not be secure unless he also faces Stone near the Chambersburg Pike. Daniel moves down McPherson's Ridge. His regiments shift, opposing two fronts, facing Cutler in the woods and Stone below. The lines rearrange to meet the blue defenders. Daniel moves his right regiments, the 32nd North Carolina, the 45th North Carolina, and the 2nd North Carolina, ahead to oppose Stone. Due to tall grasses in their front, the rebels are not yet aware of the deep railroad cut here. Meanwhile, Daniel's left regiments, the 53rd North Carolina and the 3rd Alabama, have linked up with Iverson's right. The 43rd North Carolina forms an elbow for the brigade. Daniel's left faces Cutler in the woods, while Daniel's right faces Stone. On the Union side, Stone braces for the rebel push from the north. Stone changes front of the 143rd Pennsylvania from the west to the north, shifting it to the right of the 149th Pennsylvania on the Chambersburg Pike. Iverson and Daniel clash with Baxter and Cutler. We will slide back up to Baxter's front. Iverson's regiments, standing in an open field, are getting hammered by Baxter's defenders who have the stone wall. The 12th North Carolina on Iverson's right is in better position now adjoined with the 53rd North Carolina from Daniel's line. Iverson's regiments waver. Baxter takes the initiative. With the 12th Massachusetts providing strong supporting fire, the 11th Pennsylvania, the 97th New York, the 83rd Pennsylvania, and the 88th Pennsylvania charge. The 88th Pennsylvania secures 2 rebel battle flags. The 97th New York takes another rebel battle flag. The 20th North Carolina surrenders. 300 of Iverson's men surrender to Baxter. A second brigade has been thrown back by Baxter's line. Baxter, like Buford and Wadsworth before him, is proving to be a formidable defender. Between the captured, wounded, and killed, Iverson's brigade is essentially destroyed, save for the 12th North Carolina now adjoined to Daniel's line. 2 of Rhodes' brigades, Iverson and O'Neal, have been thrown back at terrible loss. But Daniel's brigade, though halted, remains on the field. Rhodes also has 1 more reserve brigade under Ramseur. Let's zoom out. Back at Taneytown, Maryland, General Meade tells Winfield Scott Hancock, commander of the 2nd Corps, to proceed to the front and assume field command there. Meade's orders to Hancock are as follows. If the ground was suitable and circumstances made it wise, I was directed to establish the line of battle at Gettysburg. General Hancock rides at full speed to Gettysburg, knowing that the morning's actions may have progressed into the first stage of a great battle. With Hancock's departure from Taneytown, General John Gibbon is now placed in command of the 2nd Corps. Meanwhile, a race of sorts is in order between the remaining divisions of Schurz's corps coming up to Gettysburg and Jubal Early's division in Ewell's corps descending toward Gettysburg. From the northeast, Jubal Early's division is coming down the Heidlersburg Road. However, Schurz's corps still has 2 more divisions nearing Gettysburg, Barlow and Steinwehr. We will zoom back to Gettysburg. Back on the battlefield, Daniel's brigade, with remnants of Iverson's brigade, maintains an L-shaped position on McPherson's Ridge. Daniel's right flank faces Stone, whose brigade is also turned on an elbow. The railroad cut is between them. Daniel needs to do something, as his line is exposed and taking fire. It's about 1:30. Barlow's division, a second division from Schurz's corps, has arrived and is moving through town toward the front, turning up the Harrisburg Road. Barlow has instructions to form on the right of Schimmelfennig's division in order to counter Dole's brigade and reports of more Confederates coming from that direction. Schurz now has 2 divisions on the front. Let's turn west to Heth's division on Hare's Ridge. 2 of Heth's brigades, Archer, now under Fry, and Davis, had already suffered terrible casualties earlier in the morning in the initial strike against McPherson's Ridge. However, Heth has 2 fresh brigades up, Broken Brow and Pettigrew. The division moves forward off Hare's Ridge into the woods in front. Davis' brigade remains above the Chambersburg pike, rallying stragglers from the morning's fight. Heth's men are now in formation, waiting to make another strike on McPherson's Ridge. Pender's division is coming down along the direction from the Chambersburg pike to Hare's Ridge. This time, Heth will have support on his attack on McPherson's Ridge. Action continues near the pike back on McPherson's Ridge. We will zoom into Daniel's position at McPherson's Ridge. Daniel's brigade remains at McPherson's Ridge at an angle, assisted by the 12th North Carolina from Iverson's brigade and the 3rd Alabama from O'Neal's brigade. Stone's Pennsylvanians throw fire over the railroad cut. At Stone's position, Tidball's battery fires on Daniel. Daniel cannot remain in this exposed position. Instead of withdrawing, he will strike. The 45th North Carolina and the 2nd North Carolina form up to attack, supported by the 32nd North Carolina on the right and the 43rd North Carolina on the left. But Stone responds, sending the 149th Pennsylvania to the railroad cut. The railroad cut can be quite high and steep, but there are shorter drops. The 149th Pennsylvania forms within the bank of the railroad cut. They fire. North Carolina rushes forward. Pennsylvania fires. North Carolina rolls back. The railroad cut provides cover, but the 149th Pennsylvania is isolated, and the North Carolina regiments are reforming. The 149th Pennsylvania returns to the pike. Colonel Stone has been wounded. He is replaced by Wister. The railroad cut forms an obstacle that halts Daniel's line, an obstacle that was obscured until the rebel line was close enough to see it. They take fire and pull back to higher ground, just some 50 paces back. These regiments remain here, facing Stone's front. Daniel will need to reassess how to cross the railroad cut. However, Tidball's cannons receive fire from both Hare's Ridge and Oak Hill. Tidball retires. A standstill remains at McPherson's Ridge. It's about 2 o'clock. We will take a wide angle and move from Stone and Daniel on McPherson's Ridge and jump back over north of town to Schurz's corps. There is much more development today than in 1863, so I'll remove some of the modern concrete to show the open fields of 1863. With Barlow now arrived and in position, Schurz's corps has 2 divisions on the field, Schimmelfennig and Barlow. Barlow's division sets on either side of the Harrisburg Road. Von Gilsa's brigade is here, and Ames' brigade is set en echelon behind to protect the end of a flank. Ames' brigade has Rock Creek here on its right. While fresh, Schimmelfennig and Barlow are essentially in a flat location without much cover, but it is necessary to form here with the approach of more elements of Ewell's corps. We will zoom out and then zoom into the Willoughby Run sector. For orientation, Willoughby Run flows down the center of this map. Hare's Ridge is here and McPherson's Ridge is here. Oak Hill is here. Pender's division is now arriving at Hare's Ridge, re-strengthening the rebel position facing McPherson's Ridge. General Lee is now on the field with Pender at Hare's Ridge. Lee is getting his first visuals of the action. He had arrived in time to see Rhodes' division stalled at Oak Ridge. Lee's first assessment is that Heth's division had been mauled on its first attack on McPherson's Ridge earlier in the morning, and he is now watching a second division, Rhodes, being stalled in real time. Longstreet's corps is way back up the Chambersburg pike. At this time, Lee will not commit to another attack across Willoughby Run. Meanwhile, on Oak Ridge, Rhodes has Ramseur move his regiments from their reserve position forward to the front. A renewed attack will be made against Baxter's position on Oak Ridge. The 2nd North Carolina and the 4th North Carolina are sent to O'Neal's position near Oak Hill. The 14th North Carolina and the 30th North Carolina move to reinforce and reinvigorate Daniel's position. Let's zoom out. Also at about 2 o'clock, von Steinwehr's division from Schurz's corps is now at Gettysburg, taking position on Cemetery Hill. All divisions from the 11th Corps, Schimmelfennig, Barlow, and Steinwehr, have now arrived. We can see the influence of German and Central European immigration in the north on this map. We see Schurz's corps here, with Schimmelfennig's division here. Von Amsberg Brigade is here. Von Gilsa's brigade is here. A Polish immigrant, Szymanowski, leads the brigade here. Von Steinwehr is here on Cemetery Hill, defending headquarters. Steinwehr in German means stone defense, a fitting name for the defenders on Cemetery Hill. If we can see this many Germans in the high command officer positions on the Union side, we can imagine how many Germans are wearing blue uniforms on the field. Steinwehr arranges his 2 brigades with Coster's brigade on the northeast of Cemetery Hill and Smith's brigade on the northwest part of the hill. We will zoom to the Oak Ridge sector. Ramseur's reserves are coming up to the front. This attack will hit Baxter from both sides. Ramseur's brigade is now the 3rd rebel brigade to strike Baxter. Ramseur's men move into position. The 14th North Carolina and the 30th North Carolina form to the left of the 12th North Carolina, which remains from Iverson's original attack against the stone wall. This extends Daniel's position on McPherson's Ridge. On the other side, the 2nd North Carolina and the 4th North Carolina move against Baxter's right. Rhodes is showing that his division will not be thwarted by previous stumbles. We will slide directly east to Schurz's corps. With Baxter now being hit again, Schurz senses his line will be struck as well. Schurz has requested support from Steinwehr's division on Cemetery Hill. He wants a brigade from Steinwehr to help secure the Harrisburg Road, but gray columns can already be seen coming down that way. Those gray columns coming down the Harrisburg Road are the lead elements of Jubal Early's division. We will zoom out wide. This moment is critical. On Harris Ridge, Lee has to make a decision. On the one hand, Heath's division has already been mauled attacking McPherson's Ridge that morning. If he throws Pender in, he risks wearing out yet another division. In addition, Rhodes remains stalled on McPherson's Ridge. However, Early's fresh division coming down the Harrisburg Road can link with Dole's brigade and threaten Schurz's flank. With Rhodes already occupying the Union center and Early and Dole's bearing down on the Union right, an attack over Willoughby Run might squeeze and break the whole Federal line. Lee tells Heth and Pender to attack. We will zoom into the Willoughby Run sector. Heath's division is set in motion, and a second attempt over Willoughby Run has commenced. Fry, Pettigrew, and Brokenborough approach Stone, Meredith, and Biddle. This time Heth has backup. Pender's division is organized at Harris Ridge with Thomas's brigade on the left above the pike. Below him is Scales, then Perrin, and then Lane on the right. Pender's line follows behind Heth. The rebel front moves into Willoughby Run. The attackers' flanks extend beyond the defenders. Meredith's position is seriously endangered. It's clear that Herbst Woods, held by the Iron Brigade all day thus far, will likely be lost. Let's slide to the Union right. Barlow sees a high point in his front here, a knoll jutting above the plains. Barlow decides to advance his division forward to the high point. Von Gilsa advances to the northeast face of the knoll, while Ames faces to the northwest. However, this advance unwinds the extreme right flank, which is no longer held in echelon to protect the line. A gap has formed between Barlow and Schimmelfennig's divisions. General Schurz will attempt to reconnect these lines. Szymanowski has moved forward to fill the gap. But the rebels have been moving too. Doles moves toward the exposed flank in concert with Jubal Early's division now coming down the Harrisburg Road. At about 2:45, the rebel lines appear in front of Schurz's corps. We will zoom out. With Early's arrival, the rebels are now completing an arc around the whole Union line. Schurz puts another request into Steinwehr at Cemetery Hill for support. Steinwehr releases Coster's brigade. Coster moves from Cemetery Hill toward Schurz's line. Cemetery Hill, which Howard believed was the best defensive ground on the field, is left with only one brigade holding it. Meanwhile, Baxter is fighting Ramseur. This is the third brigade to face Baxter, and he needs relief. Paul's brigade at Cemetery Ridge will be called up to relieve Baxter. We will zoom into Baxter's position on Oak Ridge. It's 3 p.m. Baxter's line is out of ammunition. Ramseur is now coming in for the attack. Baxter shifts down off Oak Ridge. Cutler pulls back through the woods off the heights, his brigade having been engaged the whole day. The rebels take the stone wall. But Paul's fresh regiments come up Oak Ridge. The blue line advances. Paul's regiments are arranged right to left: the 13th Massachusetts, the 104th New York, the 107th Pennsylvania, the 16th Maine, and the 94th New York. Paul charges the stone wall, taking many prisoners. Ramseur's North Carolinians are thrown back. The Union line is now back in control of the stone wall. Paul's brigade slugs it out with Ramseur at Oak Ridge. We will slide east to the Union right. Meanwhile, action has started on the Union right. Barlow's position on the knoll is taking artillery fire from Jones' battery across Rock Creek. Jubal Early's division faces the exposed Union flank. Early forms up his brigades into battle line. Gordon is on the right, Hayes' brigade is in the center, and Hoke's brigade, which is actually under Avery now, is on the left. Smith's brigade forms up behind Avery. Early's division with Dole's brigade is about to hit Barlow's knoll. We will zoom out. At 3 p.m., from every side, the rebel front is in motion. Jubal Early is pushing from the northeast, Rhodes from the north, and Heth and Pender from the northwest and west. Doubleday's corps, which has held McPherson's Ridge since 8 in the morning, is facing a renewed attack, and the whole Union position by 3 p.m. is pressed in a vice. Schurz's corps on the right is in serious danger of being flanked. The Union center is now held by one brigade under Paul. On Cemetery Hill, General Howard knows this next push will be stronger than anything the Blue Lines have yet faced today. If the positions north of Gettysburg are going to hold, he will need reinforcements now. He sends riders for Slocum and Sickles' corps. General Hancock has nearly arrived at Gettysburg to assume command at a time when a most desperate scenario is unfolding.